How's it going, everybody? Bienvenidos and welcome to Hockey's Pacific Revision Season 2. Believe it or not, we whole year not get canceled. Who would have guessed? Unfortunately, we're starting off Season 2 minus one of the people who do the show. But don't worry, major upgrade. Much like the playoffs, Vegas missing. Instead, we have LA replacing them. Who would have guessed? Joining me today, podcast host of the official LA Kings podcast, All the Kings Men, Jesse Cohen. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Eric. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. This is a little surreal because I listen to you all the time and now you're here. So it's a little weird.
Well, I always say, in my mind, I'm still just a fan with a mic. So I appreciate the surreality for you.
Oh, absolutely.
To me, it's just two fans talking to each other.
Let me share a little bit of a background. So me, Salvadorian background, Latino, born and raised in LA. Not a lot of hockey in the family, believe it or not. Hard to believe.
Not surprised.
Started watching in 2011, so great timing.
Good timing, sure. Me. Yeah.
Zero emotional damage, straight to the Stanley Cup. You'll love to see it.
No.
And I do have to thank you. You were one of the first people that I actually actively sought out for and listened to and trying to figure out what the hell this sport is. And I think that's the thing that fascinates me most about hockey is that I don't understand it. I watch it a ton. I read as much as I can. I've never played it though, so I don't have that tangible piece. And I barely know how to skate.
I gotta tell you, the longer I'm in the industry, if you can consider me in the industry, the less confidence I have that the people in the industry understand the sport. So you're in good company.
Oh, it's I think that's one of the anytime someone talks to me about hockey, because I've become that kind of liaison for folks back in LA for who know me in my inner circles, it's basically controlled chaos. It's just in a box. It's in there. Goals happen. Some of the most beautiful ones you'll ever see, but most of the time, 9 times out of 10, it just goes in and you go, well, that happened.
Yeah, I think that's the fear that a lot of people don't want to accept might be true, is that it's all random. And that all of the stuff we tell ourselves about coaching and strategy and, why is this team good repeatedly and why is the other team bad repeatedly? I don't believe it's random chaos because but the strongest argument I have for not believing that is I really don't want to. Because if we're really just rooting for random events, then honestly, what are we doing?
No, it's true. And then also, you're one of my favorite people to reach out to because I'll go back home. I've tweeted at you before, and I'm like, should I go to this game or drive immediately back to the Bay Area where I currently live because of work and school? Well, I graduated, but work now. And your advice is usually no, go home. What are you doing? Why?
Well, I mean,
I gotta be honest. This is just me admitting you were right both times.
I mean, when the drive is 5 hours, that's a little bit different than an hour and a half.
But I gotta take in all the surrounded by Kings fans. I live in quote unquote Sharks territory.
Yeah,
and they are the worst.
Agreed.
Yeah, thank you. That's one of the things me and my co-host who's from Vegas agree on. Sharks, the worst.
Yeah, I think I did an intermission segment, or maybe it was post-game or pre-game or something, and I said that part of the reason I think Sharks fans are actually categorically the worst is that most, and this obviously isn't universal, I'm being hyperbolic, but most fans of a team will recognize and will express a little bit of humility when their team collapses or fails or does something wrong. Sharks fans just refuse. They're just like, doesn't matter what's going on. Sharks fans just like, oh, go Sharks! They're the best. It's like, I don't know. It's like
I don't know how much. I don't know how much faith you have in Patrick Marleau failing for the fourth time, or Joe Thornton failing for the eighth. You know what I mean? And it was it was a nightmare being here for that finals run. Because I got accepted to a school up here, moved up here, very first year, Sharks go to the finals, and the entire run.
Listen, in 2014, when the Kings and the Sharks were playing in the first round of the playoffs,
good times.
I was in a long distance relationship with a Sharks fan.
Okay, bold strategy.
Yeah. And listen, she was is a lovely woman, and I will never have anything bad to say about her. But Game 7 was the aftermath of Game 7 was rough.
Just kiss. I remember going to round 1, Game 4 of that series.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel terrible. I got to be honest. I basically walked into it and was like, you know what? Let's just hope for the best here. Let's just have a good time. And we did. And then, I don't know. It's just one of those things where I have no idea how they did it. I'm so happy they did. And I don't know. Maybe I jinxed myself because I do think about 2014 all the time where I'm like, I think after they beat the Ducks, I'm like, if this is as good as it gets, what a way to go, baby. What a way to go. And then they ultimately got destroyed by Vegas in round 1 and then rebuild, but now we're back.
There was an episode somewhere in, I want to say it was 2016 maybe, where I said very specifically, like, Kings fans, you need to understand that, like, right now is the good old days.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the likelihood of 2012 and 2014 continue, like, repeating, like, it just doesn't happen. Just doesn't happen that often. It's very, very hard. So, like, we need to appreciate in the moment what we have, because this is incredible, and it's not likely to keep going forever.
So funny enough, so I came in 2011, fell in love with the sport. 2013, sure. I get together with my now fiance, then girlfriend.
Mazel
2013, we walked in. Thank you. We go to our first game, we go to our first game together, live in person, Staples Center, first time. Knowing nothing about the sport, I don't know, something about it, like, oh, just go. Because I used to live, like 15-minute walk. My parents still do, 15-minute walk from Staples Center. So all the time, Laker games, all that good stuff. And then she got into it. They lost in the Western Conference Final next year, of course, Cup. And I remember having to explain it to her, like, this may never happen again. You need to understand how special this is, and that you had to not wait at all. There was absolutely no weight and pain. And then I had to see the joy of watching her, like, wow, we're terrible now. I was like, welcome to Brendan Leipzig on the second line for some reason.
Oh, poor Brendan.
I'm sure he's fine.
Actually, now that I think about it, I feel like he might have been disgraced publicly. And
oh no, he bullied people on the Canucks roster.
Yeah, so maybe I should. Yeah,
well,
too much sympathy for him, but who knows?
But yeah, I remember we're currently trying to do all 30 arenas to watch the Kings play. We're halfway there.
Nice.
Halfway there. Seattle was number 16.
Oh wow.
And impressive. we did honestly, we did our bulk of it the last 4 years, but before COVID, the last 4 years. So decent team, god awful, and our road record is not great. But
where's the furthest away arena you've been to?
I guess technically it would be the Eastern Canada trip we did. So
that's pretty far
but
away.
we've also we've also done New York and those 3. So I don't know which one's technically further.
I think Toronto's actually, like, if you just go up the parallels, I think it's probably just north of New York, but I don't know.
We usually try to bulk them together. So
that's awesome. Good for you guys.
No, it's great. It's been fun. My favorite reaction of going to Canadian markets is having the Kings stuff on, and they're like, "What the hell are you doing here?" We exist, baby. It's not all just about you. Jesse, so before we get started, actually talk about the Kings and stuff like that, why don't you introduce yourself to the Pacific Revision people?
Sure.
Let them know about you.
My name's Jesse Cohen. I am the host and producer of All the Kings Men. I am also the host. I guess I'm not the producer of the pregame radio show. I guess I'm just the host. I don't honestly, like, I don't know how the term producer is actually applied to people. When I was a kid, I thought I knew what it meant, but now I'm just like, producer doesn't actually mean anything impressive at all. It's just like people who stand next to the camera and
you accidentally point once at a direction.
You're a producer. So anyway, I host the pregame radio show. I host and produce All the Kings Men, the official podcast of the LA Kings.
That's a cool sentence.
I think I'm pretty fond of it. And I got to tell you, so I was a fan for years. I was a season I wasn't a season ticket holder. My my dad was the season ticket holder, and he took me to games for years. until 2012 when he moved to South Carolina 2 days after Game 6 against New Jersey.
Okay.
So it really is surreal for me. It still doesn't quite feel it. Never. I hope it never does. I hope I never get used to my job, because my job is dumb. It's crazy. I don't mean dumb in a bad way. I just mean like it's
Dumb as it rules, you know.
Yeah, I'm incredibly lucky or blessed or whatever phrase you want to use. It's really, I actually do experience survivor's guilt is not the right word because I didn't survive anything. But like I know how hard other people work and are working to accomplish some measure of forward momentum in this industry, and I never was trying to get where I got. It just kind of happened, and so I feel bad accepting praise or enjoying too much the job I have, because I know how hard and how much it would mean to people to have it. So my job is crazy, and I try and take at least one moment every day around the office to go like, oh man, like this is my job. Like the job I had before this was delivering organic fruits and vegetables by hand in a pickup truck in Long Beach. So, we were talking the other day at the office about work history, and the question came up, what would you do if you didn't have this job? And some of the answers were like, well, I'd be in finance, I'd be, what were some of the other things? Somebody said they would be an anesthesiologist. And they weren't just arbitrary answers. It was like people were on tracks to get these careers and decided they'd rather work in sports. And so they abandoned those tracks and got into, film work or audio work or whatever it was. And they found themselves in the industry. And my answer was like, I don't know, but it would be manual labor. It would be blue collar. Like
me too. I definitely would do that.
I mean, that's what I was doing. That was where I was headed. And everybody in the room was like, oh, you don't strike me as that kind of guy. I was like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I worked 2 seasons on the salmon docks in Alaska. I've sold kids' shoes. I've done security. I've worked in a warehouse. I've, been a delivery guy. Like that's it's my work history. I don't know what to tell you. I've done a little data entry, and I guess I did some other started my own business in my early 20s. Anyway, the point is I love my job. It's insanely lucky, and I'm a fan. Like I said at the beginning of this, I'm a fan with a microphone. Sat in section 320, row 1, seats 9 and 10 with my dad. Before that,
good seats
with my dad, the best seats.
Yeah.
And before that, at the Great Western Forum, we were in section 12, row 9, seats 1 and 2. So I mean, I'm a fan. I have jerseys, I have tchotchkes and giveaways and knickknacks and doodads going back to the 80s. When I was in high school, I drew logos in my homework notes, and I, wrote down line combos that I thought would work on my, during my study session. So I am a passionate, irrational fan who has to rein it in, so I don't say things that are going to get me in trouble when I'm doing my show.
That's actually funny you should ask, because that's one of the things that I wanted to ask you is like, has being a part of the organization, because you are an important part of it, that
I'm an employee.
Yeah. Has that changed kind of like more or less your perception of how, I guess, the success or what happens in a season for the LA Kings?
No. It has changed a lot, but when the team is losing, I'm still a miserable lunatic. And the thing that I hate the most, and the thing that happens all the time when you work there, and it has to, I understand why it has to, but I hate it. When the team loses, you can't have an office full of people in a bad mood, right?
Yes.
Because the office is full of like HR and legal and security and the sales staff and marketing, and right, there's like a million different divisions that have nothing to do with the play on the ice, and we can't all just come in a bad mood and be miserable to each other because the team that we don't actually play for lost. So it's like when they lose, or when there's a bad loss, or they lose in the playoffs or whatever, and you go back to the office or you're bumping into everybody's kind of got to do that, like, oh, tough break, but and you're just like, no, like, I don't want to cuss because I am trying to not curse in public as a general.
You can hear though. And if you want,
I know you would let me, but I
can edit in the guitar if you want.
No, well, I appreciate that,
to keep the gimmick going as it follows you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. But no, I just want to say, like, look, F off, like, don't talk to me right now.
Yeah.
Or I get a lot of like text messages, DMs from people like, oh, so close, and I just want to like, leave me alone. I'm I'm not looking for console, I'm not looking for you to console me. I'm in a miserable mood. They lost. I hate it, and just let me be miserable. Not it's just and it's, of course, it's the most well-meaning people, and so you can't tell them to F off and to leave you alone. But I really do, if anybody's listening to this, whoever tries to reach out to me after they lose or something bad happens, don't. I don't need it. It'll just make me mad at you. So yeah, that working there hasn't changed that part of it at all. It's changed a lot, but not that part.
I'm right there with you. I let sports dictate how I feel. And
if you don't, I don't understand why you're like, I don't understand what the point of following sports is if you don't let it control.
It's true. It's true.
Otherwise, you just, I don't know, watch scripted TV. Like what?
I felt the highest of highs with this team, and I don't know if I felt the lowest of lows. I've definitely felt like I've been in a rut.
Trust me, you have not.
Probably not.
You have
spoiled.
You have not.
I have that conversation so often with my friends who are like Leafs fans or Canadians fans, and like, you don't get to complain, Eric. You've seen, and I haven't really suffered. We had 3 years.
I have long believed that when people decide to really like adopt a team, that you should have to take a course on the history of the team,
which I've done,
and you should have to be able to recite chapter and verse the greatest failures and disappointments of your team's history, because otherwise, what are we talking about? Like, if you're a Chicago Bulls fan and all you know is the 6 titles that Michael Jordan won, well, okay, fine. Everybody who was alive in the 90s can do that. Like, ESPN just made a documentary, a 10-part documentary about it. Like, all right, big deal. But if you're a Minnesota Vikings fan, and you can go down the list of all the ways,
or just Minnesota in general fan.
Yeah, fair. Well, didn't the Twins win a title at some point?
Yeah, but like in the 90s.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess the Timberwolves never won, right? Anyway.
Nope.
So yeah, you've lived through some stuff, but 2018 was a bummer, no question.
Yes.
2015, I refuse to talk about in any.
God, I hate that year. I get so angry. I get so angry at that year.
And 2018-19 was spectacularly bad.
Yeah, it was a slap in the face of like, this is where this is going. All right, well.
But until you've gone through, well, I guess taking the Edmonton to 7 games, because like they made it in in 93, right? They lose to Montreal. Everybody knows the story. Marty McSorley's illegal stick.
Yes.
Then they missed the playoffs for 5 years. Get swept by St. Louis in 98 and in game 3, they take a 5-minute major. They're up 3-0, and they take a 5-minute major, and St. Louis scores 4 goals in the course of that 1 5-minute major penalty. They wind up sweeping them, and they miss the playoffs the following year. Then they make it against Detroit, and then they get swept again. The only thing stopping that from being an unbelievably horrific run of bad play is that the next year was possibly, other than the miracle on Manchester, might be the greatest comeback in
the frenzy on Figueroa.
Yeah. So, and then they take Colorado to 7 games 2 years in a row. So those two, I always say the chapter after sort of defines the chapter before. So those Frenzy on Figueroa did a lot of heavy lifting on salvaging the late 90s, mid to late 90s, but it was bad. It was rough.
Yeah, being like super new, so about a year, right? I had to wait a year and a half. Bore me. Right. I remember just seeing the celebrations, and just for people who follow the teams, it just seemed like a wait. Like it's happening. What do we do? We don't know how to act. Like, I can't believe it's happening. And I remember taking that one for granted, the first one, because I just didn't fully understand. The second one, being 100% committed 2013, because that's when I like decided to like, all right, we're gonna start learning everything. Think about power play time, deployment, Corsi, all your favorite buzzwords of like, all right,
Sure.
let's figure out what all this stuff means. Goal saves above expected, whatever, save percentage. And just seeing, the rivalry with Chicago during that time, seeing the end of the career of Timo Solani, like, and then going back and going to go learn about Timo Solani and all this stuff. And I think that's where you really do get to enjoy. And yeah, I think it's fascinating. Like that's again the thing that I love about hockey is that I don't understand it. And that includes its history and
a few years ago, I think it was after the second cup, I kind of stumbled onto this theory that when you're a sports fan, the real thing that's happening when you're a fan of and not just a sports fan, because I don't think it applies to individual sports that aren't geographically locked, but I think when you're rooting for a team that belongs to a city, what you're really doing, if you sort of suss it out fully, is you're not really rooting for the team, because the players change, the owners change. Like in my lifetime as a Kings fan, there have been 3 different ownership groups, 4 different jerseys, I don't know how many different players, different coaches, 2 different buildings. Like it's not the same thing. So I'm really just rooting for a piece of paper that that somebody sold to a different that says I'm basically rooting for the articles of incorporation for the Los Angeles Hockey Club LLC or whatever the official name of our company is. I'm not sure. But nobody wants to do that, right? That's not really what we're doing. What we're really doing is we are rooting for the other fans who root for the same team. We are rooting for all of us to share a transcendent moment. That's what we really want to have happen. The moment that we are all choosing to pull for is that these guys who happen to be here today will win this game that happens to be played today. But like 2014, the Kings beat the Sharks, it's only the 4th time in NHL history that it's ever happened. It's incredible. It's great. I love it. Tremendous. But like, I don't know, Todd McClellan's the head coach of the Kings now. So is there any like holdover from that moment? No. All we can really the magic of that moment is that I wasn't there because it was in San Jose, but those of us who were Kings fans, we were all watching together and we all got to celebrate together. And so it becomes a shared experience together as fans. That's like what we're really rooting for.
And let me tell you, I moved up here 2015. Boy, did I use this moment as just ammo and everything. I would go to the Shark Tank to go watch games, of course. Our beloved Kings.
Naturally.
You couldn't say anything. What are they gonna say? Chet beat LA for 3 hours like they typically do, and good job winning this regular season game, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Never forget. Jesse, before we go a little bit more, actually, I would like to ask you what's you talked about where you sat at your season tickets and stuff like that. What's it like watching a game from the press box? And is there a difference in how you watch the game?
So a lot of people ask me questions like that, and I always tell them there's 2 different answers, and I'll give you both of them. First, I'm going to give you the public answer that I always feel like I have to give, that is coming from my rational brain that understands how the world works.
Yes.
It's awesome. It's great. I don't have to pay for my seat. I haven't had to pay to go to a hockey game in 7 years, something like that. It's amazing. They feed you. You can drink coffee or soda all night long. You got to pay for it. You're not wedged into a little uncomfortable seat. You've got a desk chair, unobstructed views. You've got TVs everywhere. You can watch the highlights. It's great. It's great. It's the Bob Miller press box. The healthy scratches are in front of you. Your coworkers around.
Oh, really?
Scouts are there. It's fantastic. During the playoffs, I was watching Drew Doughty sit 5 feet away from me every game, going nuts. It's fun. The real answer is it's terrible. I hate it. I can't.
Is it the no cheering?
Yeah, well, that's a huge part of it. That is a huge part of it. The other part of it is distractions. I don't want to be distracted. Every game I go up there telling myself, you are gonna watch this game the way you used to watch the games. Locked in. I used to sit next to my dad in 320, and we would have, we'd be talking the whole night, but we're staring ahead, leaning over, right, talking loud enough so that we can hear each other, so that we never so that we're watching the game.
Yes.
I'm in the press box. I've got my laptop out. I got my phone out. Zach Dooley's over there. Jack Jablonski's over there. If something happens, we're sharing highlights. We're sliding around. If there's a review, we're looking up for the replay on the TV. If the PR staff is walking by, we're talking to them. If one of the execs walks by, if somebody from the office happens to come by and say hello, we're saying hello to them. If there's a funny tweet that's going around, everybody's, holding up the phone. Look at that. I'm looking up stats. I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, how many minutes did this guy play in the second period? And the reality is, the people that the people who are responsible for chronicling the game are probably some of the people paying the least close attention.
Interesting.
And I shouldn't speak for everybody. That's not true. There are a lot of people up in the press box who are doing a much better job than I am of paying attention, and they have honed that skill down to a fine art. So I shouldn't speak for everybody, but definitely I would say the people in the first few rows of the 300 section at Crypto.com Arena, they're probably paying just as close attention. So it's there's ups and downs to everything, right? I mean, like I said, the real answer is it's great. The passionate fan answer is, it gives me too many opportunities to take the whole situation for granted. But that's a me problem.
No, I mean, I don't know how I would pay attention. Like, I'm very much I'll just there with my arms crossed, just staring and not saying anything until like a commercial break happens or intermission time. Did it take time to get like used to that kind of setup? That's different than what you were growing up with.
I'm still not used to it at all. But it is funny how quickly you forget. I went and sat in. A friend of mine tried to give a bunch of tickets to my friends, and then at the last minute, like, they all but one backed out, and so I was like, all right, well, I'm just gonna go sit with my friend. So I went down and sat next to my friend for the first period. Well, I think maybe even the first two periods. And I had completely forgotten how obnoxious I am at sporting events. I think it was an Oilers game. I don't think it was a playoff game.
They probably deserved it.
I think it was the Oilers game, like a couple weeks before the end of the regular season.
Oh, then that was one of the games you told me to just go home.
Yeah. And there was just a huge whack of Oilers fans sitting a couple rows behind me.
Yeah.
And, the Kings would score, and I'm turning around and I'm, shrugging at them and, saying stuff to them. And, if they scored a goal that was nice, I'd turn around and go like, all right, fine.
Connor McDavid, great.
Yeah, all right,
whoa.
Fine, whatever. Yeah. And then I think if I recall, they got out to a lead, and then the Kings came back and overtook them. And I was very loud and obnoxious.
Yeah, if
I forgot how much fun it was.
Yeah, I believe it was 1-0. Then Trevor Moore tied it on a shorthander. I remember that.
That sounds right.
I don't remember who scored the second goal, but then McDavid did McDavid things, and then we lost 3-2.
That's what he's gonna do,
I remember that was actually the first hockey game I took my parents to.
Nice.
So these two Salvadorians in their mid-50s know nothing about the game besides that I like it. But even them, like, this is how like Connor McDavid's good. They were like, that guy.
Yeah.
That guy there. And I was like,
no, he's very good. It's sort of absurd how good
it's very annoying.
Yes, it is.
I do like to tell Oilers fans that he's gonna come over just like Gretzky did. It's about to happen.
Yeah, we'll see.
They get real bad.
We'll see. I'm sure they do.
Let's actually, since we're talking about last season, let's talk about it.
Let's do it.
Jesse, one of my favorite things that you say is happiness is measured by expectations, which is good. I've actually taken that to work with me. I work in visitor services, so expectations on people who visit you. Expectations is kind of what more or less determines what your mood is going to be afterwards. What was your expectations heading into last year for this team? Because I had very low ones.
Yeah, so one of the really annoying side effects of me having my job is that I no longer see the point in predictions.
Ah,
Because you just don't, because you have no idea, right? Like
yes.
last year, I mean, a couple of years ago, I did a pregame segment on Bally, and the whole joke of the bit was that preseason predictions are dumb.
Yes.
And so, there was a meme going around a couple of years ago where you do like a top 10 list, and the first 9 lines on your top 10 list would be, you shouldn't classify art or try and rate movies, and
Yes.
then the number
This
10
one.
would be the worst
Yeah.
possible. Yeah, and the
Yes.
joke was like, yes, this is true, except that objectively this thing is so terrible that it define them. So I did preseason predictions are pointless and silly and nobody ever knows what, and then Vancouver Canucks number 10.
Yes.
And of course we finished last in the division that year, so
Well,
there you go. But I mean, last year everybody would have picked Vegas and Edmonton and
yes.
maybe Calgary, I guess. I don't really
We spent
remember.
a specific episode bringing a
Yeah.
writer for the Oilers in to talk with my
And
co-host about how those two were going to be battling for the division.
then
Waste of
what
time.
happened? And then what happened? Vegas missed the playoffs. So one of the other things I say besides happiness is measured expectations is that when everybody agrees on something, it's usually wrong.
Mhm.
So yeah, last year I figured they'd miss the playoffs. Not I figured they could improve. That's the other thing is like I hear these people on different shows sometimes, or I hear sports talk radio or just fan conversations, and we all get used to these phrases that in my mind, and we use them without thinking, and they don't
Yeah.
mean it. They don't mean anything to me, and I don't like them. And one of them is, well, you have to get better. You can't
Well,
go
you don't have
backwards.
to.
Yeah, it's like no, you really don't actually. Like you can miss the playoffs again. And I said it all at the end of last year as last year was winding down. I kept saying repeatedly, and I'll say it probably less passionately at the beginning of this season, but I said, like, I can see a world where this team gets better this year and still misses the playoffs, because if Vancouver had hired Bruce Boudreau 2 weeks earlier than they did,
Mhm.
I think Vancouver probably has a much better shot of making the playoffs. And if Vegas played their cards a little differently than they did, they probably should have made the playoffs. And the LA Kings still could have finished with 99 points, or maybe it would have been 97 or 95 if they didn't pick up one of the wins against Vegas or Vancouver or whatever.
Yeah.
And they could have finished in 5th place in the division, and it still would have been an incredible season. Phil Deneau still would have been amazing. Jordan Spence still would have shown up out of nowhere. Sean Dursey still would have, claimed an NHL spot. Like everything that happened still would have happened. But there's 7 other teams in the division that we
Yes.
don't have any control over, or the amount of control we have over is the night. And I mean the players on the team.
Yes.
The only control they have over those other 7 teams is the games that they happen to play them. So yeah, I had not incredibly low expectations, but I did not think they would make the playoffs last year.
I think I picked them 5th. I think I'm right there with you if I remember correctly. Because I think I had Vancouver. I for some reason picked Seattle. Goddamn, make the playoffs. So again, predictions be nothing.
I did too. No, I think I said Edmonton and Vegas 1 and
Yeah.
2. And then I think I said 3 through 7 or something like that. You could tell me any combination
Yeah.
of outcomes and I would have believed you. And we're basically at the same spot this year, except that I don't think Vegas will finish first, but I also wouldn't, like, I just wouldn't be stunned, like they're still
No,
they still have good players.
yes, but Vegas is missing the playoffs. I refuse to believe.
I mean,
It's
certainly hope you're right.
okay. Hear me out on this new theory that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Vegas, new Sharks.
Okay. I'm on board.
Yeah, like expectations are good. People are going to keep picking them every year, and then they find a way to screw it up at the end of it. When it matters most, Vegas wilts away. I don't know why. I understand.
Well, I have my theories about why.
What do you got?
I believe that teams succeed much, and part of this is probably because I watched too much Ted Lasso. I believe
such a good show.
I believe that teams win far more because of things like chemistry and heart and character and all that stuff, and far less because of overwhelming skill and talent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that drives me crazy about. I've really chosen a poor profession for myself, because one of the things that drives me nuts about other people that do what I do
Uh-huh.
is, and I'll just use basketball as an example. I love listening to podcasts about basketball. I cannot watch basketball, but I love listening to people
Interesting.
talk about it. And when Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant were rumored to be departing the New Jersey Nets,
Yes.
I was listening to this show. I think it was the Ringer basketball podcast, and these two guys, and they were saying they laid out this incredible case for why Kyrie Irving was perhaps team poison, overrated, not worth the money, and why every team, should be thrilled that he's on a different team other than theirs.
Yes.
And then the question was put to him directly. Well, would you trade player X, player Y from your team's roster for Kyrie Irving? And he was like,
I guess.
I probably would. And I was like, are you kidding
Yeah.
me? You just spent 15 minutes laying out the most perfect explanation of why his skill level is immaterial. We all understand, everybody on the planet would tell you that Kyrie Irving is one of the most physically gifted, skilled basketball players that anybody's ever laid eyes on. I mean, I don't know. I'm just repeating what I hear other people saying.
He's pretty good.
But that's what I hear people say, is that he's got incredible handles. He's one of the best ball handlers in the history of the game, blah, 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 blah. This guy spent easily 15 minutes saying why he was overrated and it didn't matter. And then the second it was like, well, would you have him on your team? He's like, oh, he's so good. That's the kind of nonsense where it's like, oh, he's so good. And it's like, okay, Vegas keeps going after guys that are, oh, they're so good. And then they trade somebody else away to make room for them, or they don't take into account, how that player will interact with other players on the team. And they're not a team. They're just, and everybody, and this is the other thing that drives me nuts, since you asked.
This is all we do here. I make fun of Vegas.
The justification that people always come back with is, well, they're going for it, and you have to admire them for that. And I go like, what? Why do I have to admire them for that? And I got into a fight with somebody on Twitter.
Well, technically, everybody's going for it at all times, just different ways.
I think it was Down Goes Brown, and he was like, this contract may be overpaid. The player might not be worth it, and this may be a terrible mistake, but gosh darn it, they saw what they wanted and they went for it, and you have to admire them for that. And I was like, well, do I? If they misjudged the thing they want, they chose poorly, and then they overpaid to get it, do I really have to admire them for their
gumption,
blinding passion? Like, I feel like if a family member of mine, like if my little sister came home and said, listen, I've fallen in love with a guy, he's addicted to meth, he robs banks, and oh yeah, he's in debt, and it's going to cripple me financially to marry him, but I love him and I want to spend the rest of my life with him, so you have to respect me for that. I'd be like, no, I'm sorry, sweetie. You are making a terrible decision. You're insane. And I will do everything in my power to convince you not to do it. And I certainly wouldn't respect you for it. I might pity you for it, but I wouldn't respect you for it. So I don't understand. I never understood that logic. But
no, the thing that frustrates me about them is just that there seems to be no afterthought to what they do. It's do thing. Oh God, everything's crashing. What do we do? Fucking nothing, I guess. Like, we're fucked. And that's more or less, I mean, I've never been more frustrated at another team than the last months of the regular season for Vegas.
So this is yet another thing that drives me crazy. Lots of things drive me crazy. I'm sure everybody knows. This conversation of like, oh, well, why do people hate the Golden Knights? Oh, it's jealousy. You're jealous of them because they had success and never failed. And I go, when Pittsburgh won the cup 3 times in however many years it was, I didn't hate Pittsburgh. I kind of admired them. I was like, oh, that's good for them. Like, when Chicago won the cup 3 times in however many years at the expense of the Kings one year, I didn't hate. I mean, I hated Chicago in a sports way, but like not the way that people hate the Golden Knights. Like, wasn't jealous of Chicago. I wasn't jealous of Pittsburgh. When the Ducks won in 2007, which was brutal and awful, and nobody wanted them, no Kings fans wanted them to win because we hadn't won yet. I didn't hate the Ducks. They had an incredible team. Like, one of my favorite conversations is who would win the 2007 Ducks or the 2012 Kings if you could actually pit them against one another. Like, that's how good that 2007 team was. Like, it was.
They were stacked.
They were great. but people hate the Golden Knights because of the way they act. This has nothing to do with jealousy or bitterness or envy or whatever. Like, it's a silly conversation to me. It annoys me.
It's just I don't know. It's no self-realization. I think that's the thing that annoys me about them the most. Also that I do a show. So you listen to that, Miguel. Like I'm gonna here. Look, I'll address you directly since you're not here, Miguel. You need to just come to terms with. I don't need you to do victim stuff anymore. Okay, it's not woe is you. Everybody hates me for being good. First off, you're not good. You've won as many cups as we have in the last 5 years. So
You're not wrong.
let's relax here. I also hate people like celebrating deep playoff runs when they're like, well, you also lost eventually. So I mean, it doesn't really matter to me.
That one I go back and forth on. Like, there are a lot
I think
of people...
I think it depends on the year, obviously.
Yeah, it's sort of how it happens, right? So like,
yes,
the Kings only have one deep playoff run that didn't go well. Well, actually, it's not true. In 2013, so they have two Western Conference final appearances that didn't result in Stanley Cups. And yeah, like if they hadn't won in 2014, then suddenly making it to the Western Conference Finals in 2013 doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
But they did win in 2014. So now you can look back on it and go, well, listen, 3 consecutive years of reaching the conference final, 2 cups, and they were banged up and hurt in 2013, and it was a lockout. Like, I have a bunch of t-shirts that say back-to-back regulars, full length regular season champs.
Yep.
So yeah, it does. I guess it sort of depends.
Yeah, we had the most recent back-to-back full-length regular season.
Yeah, exactly.
No, we still do. We still do.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. There's a very short list of teams where I will be annoyed if they won. Obviously, the California teams, obviously Vegas, and then after that, I'm like, anyone can win it. It's not going to affect me.
That's a good question. Yeah, if San Jose or Anaheim won, I would definitely be annoyed. If
I would move back home.
Certainly be annoyed. I think if Arizona won,
that would be amazing.
I would be annoyed.
Could you imagine them raising the cup in the 3,000 person arena?
It would be cool.
It'd be funny.
But I'd also be like, really? Like, really? Who would annoy me if they won this year?
So you got Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver left in the Pacific.
Wouldn't mind Calgary winning. Wouldn't mind Vancouver. I mean, I'd mind.
Yes.
But I wouldn't wouldn't upset me at a deep philosophical level. Edmonton would be tough. I'd have to think long and hard about how I felt about that.
I feel like the recent loss kind of doesn't help in round 1.
It doesn't. And, they mismanaged themselves for so long.
Was the best player in the world. And then they also get Leon Draisaitl, who's arguably maybe the second best.
So I'd want to see, and I never like the narrative of like, oh, this player, like, I don't like the idea of building around singular players in hockey. I don't think that's how you do it. And then, especially high scoring wingers. And then a guy like Ovechkin, they finally put, a center with him who actually deserved the Conn Smythe more than he did the year they won. And so now all of a sudden, Alexander Ovechkin's playing with a center who outscores him and who drives play and does everything. And they win. And it's like, oh, Alexander Ovechkin learned how to. And it's like, did he?
He learned how to win, baby.
Did he change a single thing? And that's the net. Like, I am not interested in the Connor McDavid had to learn how to win. It's like,
no. It's just he needed a competent roster around him.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually play because
the goalie and some defensemen.
In the playoffs, you can easily lock in on one line. Like, I mean, Calgary saw that happen where they fizzled out because.
Don't get me wrong, McDavid was unreal last year in the playoffs, but
God, it was annoying.
They still lost.
It was annoying.
Yeah.
That 2-0 goal in Game 7.
That's a whole conversation that people aren't prepared to have, I think, around that one.
No. Focusing on last season, do you have a favorite moment or game from last year?
Favorite moment or game? Possibly the Columbus game where Arvidsson
scored that was a good one.
The game winner. There were a couple moments like that, although that's the only one that stands out where all of a sudden
I think my favorite moment is from that same road trip.
Yeah.
It would have been Boston, the Trevor Moore empty net, and then as Andreas Athanasiou with the overtime winner.
Yeah. So there were moments like that where you're just like, oh, this team is like something's happening, right? And you could see it. So yeah, there were some games like that. There's some good ones. Beating Florida was great, right? Six, whatever it was, it
Yeah.
6-2?
The one at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna make me look at the schedule now. So yeah, there were some
Florida
definitely
close.
some.
Oh no, Florida wasn't Florida Martin Firk like tying it up
Uh,
real late. It was a bomb.
Possibly.
Because I know the first one
Yes,
at
yeah,
Florida,
that was. Yeah,
everyone was out with COVID, so we won that game by default.
right. Yeah, so I mean, there were some real good games, but I think I'm probably gonna go with Columbus. But like you said, that whole road trip was
That was awesome.
yeah, it was good stuff. Yeah,
I remember thinking the entire year, like, I don't know if this team's good or not, but this team rules. That's about it.
There were a bunch of people who would ask me like, how are they doing it? And I would say it's through the power of friendship. And I would say
Yes.
like, and I'm not really kidding. As sort of corny an answer as it was, it's like we had two lines to know Arvidsson and Moore and Kaliev, Lizotte and Lemieux, and then Adrian Kempe was doing Adrian Kempe things as they struggled to find somebody else to play with him and Kopitar all year long.
Yeah.
And the rest of it was just like a revolving door of bodies. You know, the defense. Everybody knows the defense, right? Everybody was hurt, out and gone. And you had what 9?
I think that's the one narrative that people forget, because I think the Kings either were first or second in men game lost due to injury.
I think they were second behind Vegas, but
Yes.
not by a ton. I don't think.
Yeah, losing Drew Doughty. Oh God, I'm still.
Yeah.
That's another thing where I'm going to be. What if?
There were like everybody. There's a portion of fans who criticize the organization for how they handled the players in the playoffs because Ontario and LA. I think they lost back-to-back nights. I think they both were eliminated.
Yeah.
From those back-to-back nights, and there was a handful of players who weren't dressed for either team on either game, and there were a handful of fans who were like, rabble.
Yeah.
And I just go like, listen, the rules are what the rules are. And there were nights where all 6 defensemen that started the season in Ontario were on the Kings.
Yep.
And there were nights where the Ontario Reign blue line was like a bunch of dudes. Like half of them I never heard of and disappeared after that.
Yeah, it was a bunch of people, and Oli Mata was the remnants.
Yeah, and so you can only do so many call-ups and send-downs, and people have to be on rosters for in order to qualify to participate. And then once you're in the playoffs, you're trying to win. So like I think wasn't it 9 guys the Kings had out at one point on IR at the same time?
It was really God. It was back-to-back games too and stuff.
Oh. Yeah, it's like half your team. And again, Drew Doughty, Arvidsson, like not, it wasn't like.
I was so excited to see that second line go against Edmonton, and I was like, oh, great. No one like pure, like I don't want to call him pure goal scorer, but he's definitely the most aggressive at taking shots at the net. Gone.
He is definitely
on our best line, and it's gonna eat at me. That's because I would love to see what this Kings team could have done, at least with Arvidsson in the lineup.
Yeah, well, that's sports for you, right?
Yeah. Heading into this year, we got the rookie face off tomorrow, which I'll be at. Very excited. Do you have any rookies that you think are gonna have the best shot at cracking the lineup besides the obvious?
No, I don't. And I am aware that other people, and I get it, it's content. Yeah. You have to have conversations. It's not fun to just say no. But I'm listening to other people and they're like, who's your dark horse to make the team, or who's going to make it out of camp, or like, what's the story? And I'm looking at the roster and I'm going like, all right, well, Fiala, Kopitar, Kempe, Moore,
there's not a lot of space.
Arvidsson, I follow Byfield, Kaliev, Lemieux, Lizotte, Grundstrom, Velarde, Anderson, Kupari, Anderson, Dolan. That's 16 guys.
Yeah.
For best case scenario, 14 spots. Right off the hop, if you're, thinking that Fagemo or Turcotte or Thomas or one of those guys is going to leap up and make the team, you understand though, like they have to be better, and not just like better, but like head and shoulders incontrovertibly better than Kupari, Anderson, Dolan, Elias Anderson, Gabriel Villar. Like, it's not that it's impossible.
There's really only one person, in my opinion, that I think we could see
Yeah.
opening night, and that'd be Brant Clark.
Yeah.
But even then, that right side is full. So much so
Yes.
that Sean Walker is probably going to play the left side or something like.
But Brant Clark also has the added benefit
Yes.
of they can keep him for 9 games,
And then send him back.
Not 9 games on the roster, but like 9 games that he plays. So like I
Yes.
was theorizing recently that they could start the season with 8 defensemen, assign one guy to be Brant Clark's partner, who would also only play in games that Brant Clark was playing in. And then, you know, you play him, and if you play him in every other game, well, now you're 18 games into the season before you hit his 10-game, you know, ELC activating clause. And then at that point, World Junior camps might be starting to get, you know what I mean? So like,
yeah,
there's all sorts of tricks and gimmicks and ways around it. But yeah, you're right. Brant Clark, excuse me, is the only one. And even him, like you said, there's Doughty, Roy, Walker, Dursey, Ferrari, Edler, Bjorn. There's 8 other dudes before you even start the Brant Clark conversation.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't be surprised to see him, but also I would kind of want to figure out what that bottom pair of Walker and anybody you want to put in there. Well, do you put him with Roy or Dursey or I don't know. This is me spending time on Cap Friendly at the half for like the past month and a half, going like, well, maybe this could work.
They have a lot of guys.
Yeah, they do. Are you surprised they haven't made like a more significant trade with roster pieces?
Absolutely, I am. I thought they would have done it. I think last season I said they were going to do it by November 1st. And then I pushed it back to, or maybe I said like October 15th. And then I was like, well, maybe November 1st. And I was like, well, maybe December 1st. And then they kept getting hurt. Guys kept getting COVID, and they never had to. So they didn't, and correctly so, as it turns out. But yeah, this season I'm just looking at it and it's like, all right, well, yeah, you have 4 right shot defensemen, and that doesn't include Brant Clark or Jordan Spence.
Yes.
You've got Anderson, Bjornfoot, Edler, and Muverari. Any of those guys could play. You've got 12 forwards that I think, just based on contract and experience, they're not locks, but they're like those. Are the guys
I think the ones you listed are probably going to be for sure what we see opening night, barring anything.
That's the thing, right? But like, well, let's say Victor, you know, it's one of those things where like, all right, well, let's say Victor Arvidsson is not ready. Well, okay, now you can, you know, maybe you put Rasmus Kupari up there. Now you're only sending one guy down to the minors, and then you go, all right, well, you know, what if somebody gets hurt in training camp? Well, now that opens up the second spot, and well, what if blah blah blah, and all of a sudden you wiggle out of this crunch that you apparently have. So I don't know.
Actually, let me ask you, because it just occurred to me that I guess technically these players are more or less your coworkers in a weird sense.
In a weird
does it
way,
get weird?
Yes.
Does it get weird talking about like potential trade situations?
Well, yeah, it does. The hardest part is, you know, let's say you're watching a game and the power play stinks,
which it did.
Which it did.
Yeah.
And you go, huh. Well, I know why I think it stinks.
Yes.
And you're at practice with a bunch of other people, and you're all sharing your opinions on why you think it stinks and what you think the solution should be. And then the opportunity comes to say something about it publicly. And all of a sudden, all of those conversations turn into, well, you know, you just have to keep working, and 200-foot game and 60-minute effort and team effort. You know, it's not one person.
It feels like I'm in an intermission right now.
Yeah, well, and a lot of that is just because, you know, people listen. Like,
yes.
You know, I was talking to Marco Sturm for the show the other day, and he was like, you know, hey, I was on vacation in Greece over the summer, and I was listening to your show. And I was like, what? He was like, yeah. I was like, well, what are you doing listening to the show?
Did you have other stuff to listen to?
I wanted to keep in touch with what was going on. I was like, all right, cool. Well, I'm glad I didn't say anything bad about the power play. But yeah, like you have to become aware of the fact that, and I mean, this is a huge reason why, generally speaking, teams don't have people like me, because teams are not in the business of critiquing themselves.
Yes.
Generally speaking, there are independent media companies that do that for them. Unfortunately, at the moment, we don't have a lot of independent media companies who have devoted a lot of resources to covering us. So
kind of wish we had you for Arizona, like a version of you for Arizona now, having to talk up this playing at a college for the next 3 years.
I actually kind of like it. I'm not gonna lie.
It's I don't know. I'm going there. I'm planning to go there in December when the Kings play.
Yeah.
I'm super excited to see what the atmosphere is like because I've been to plenty of AHL games.
Yeah, it should be fun. It should be a
It
blast.
should be dope.
Yeah.
And honestly, if history repeats itself, there's gonna be a lot of Kings fans in Arizona.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen. The only thing stopping me from 100% going is that it's December 23rd, right?
I know it's
So
God, I'm so annoyed.
it's rough. But one of the things I liked, the most about it is that it's honest.
Yes.
Like the building that they used to play in said, nope, not anymore. And so they had to just say, like, all right, well, we need a building, we need a rink. This is what we've got, and damn it, we're gonna make it work. And everybody's saying like, oh, this is an embarrassment to the league, and this is a joke, and like, it's actually not. Like, I don't know if anybody's been paying attention to how well things are going in Arizona over the last 30 years, but it's not great. Like,
no,
the embarrassment is that the building that they previously were in,
they missed the rent payments, and they're like, yeah, we're good.
Like,
we're good with not having
wasn't interested in renewing the lease. Like, that's the embarrassment. The fact that they're playing in a 5,000 seat arena is actually, it's creative. It's resourceful. Like, good for them. It'll be great. And if they are to be believed, their revenue will increase because they're charging more for the tickets because they're at a premium. So yeah, should it last forever? No, but in the short term, I'm all right with it.
Jesse, again, thank you for your time. So one that was 2 questions. I have one from a listener and one from my good old friend Miguel, who's the second half of the show.
Yeah, the Golden Knights fan.
Yes, I can give you his real question, or I can give you the one where he's messing with you.
Well, give me the one where he's messing with me.
He wants me to ask you, how does it feel about the Kings overachieving and knowing he has to go back to not making the playoffs?
I mean, I guess I'll see you there, not in the playoffs. Like, I don't know. Like, zing. I don't know. I don't think you get to, like, when the Kings finally won the cup.
Yes.
I was writing for the Royal Half and doing the podcast with the Royal Half, and we were brutal and obnoxious.
Absolutely, as you should be.
Yeah, exactly. And I always said, when we're down, feel free to kick us, because we took every pot shot available at the Canucks, the Sharks, the Blues, although the Blues had to go ahead and ruin it by winning. But yeah, if your team misses the playoffs, I'm not sure you get to taunt the fans of a team that made the playoffs with, well, next year you won't make the playoffs. So
also, let's not forget, they also lost to Montreal the year before this,
yeah,
and they ended up being the worst team in the league.
Yeah. So yeah, what's the real question then? Because that was weeks. I didn't mess with me though.
I knew it wouldn't. It just he also cowered out and be like, I'm just kidding. No, stop being a coward, Miguel.
All right, what's
the real one is it's about jerseys, and how do you feel about the upcoming changes to the sweaters? And do you think, or do you want personally a change in the team's branding?
The Kings.
Yes. Because we've had a lot of different jerseys throughout the year. I have all of them.
So I am not a huge fan aesthetically of the current logo. However, I believe that you should not change your logo.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's our logo. So
even though we've had like 6 of them.
Yeah, but at some point I just say, listen, you don't change your logo. Like, when I walk in the building, there's a Kings logo on the wall.
Yes.
And it has our mission state underneath it. Well, if we change our logo, like, everything has to change.
Yes.
Right? Like, all of the lamp covers and bar stool covers and phone cases and bumper stickers and jerseys, like all the stuff that we sold on the strength of this is who we are. We just arbitrarily go like, just kidding, everybody. Like, we've done some market research that shows this might be, 0.03% more, whatever. No, I say keep your logo. I would, however, change the jerseys, because the jerseys have 2 things that drive me nuts: the piping.
No, I do it. Yeah.
And the numbers above the stripes on the arm. I don't care for either of those details.
Huh, where'd you want the numbers? Is it in in the stripe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way God intended. the way it was when I was a kid. Actually, hold on real quick. I'll be right back if you don't
No
mind.
worries. No, I'll edit this. That's a good jersey. Yeah, in between the numbers.
Yeah, numbers on the stripes. Otherwise, what is the point of the stripes on the sleeve?
Yeah.
Like, and just clean. I don't need weird random lines going down. Like
Yeah, I love that
Adidas
jersey.
did that to almost like they just put piping on, or no, it
Yeah.
wasn't. I think it was Reebok actually. But regardless, like whoever took over.
Well,
the
Adidas
jersey-
all they did was change the piping on the old
Yeah.
Reebok jerseys. That's about
Yeah.
it for them.
No, piping, get rid of it. I don't need it. But anyway,
Yeah,
that's what I would change.
Any thoughts on the reverse retro? I know we're gonna have a white version this year of ours if all the reports are indicating. Do you like those?
I loved the old ones. If the new ones, and I confess I do not know what they look like. Wish I did. I don't know what they look like. If they look like what I think they'll look like, I'm gonna like them a lot.
Yeah.
I don't like yellow jerseys. And I don't like the Kings old yellow jerseys, but I do
Excuse
like
me, gold.
what have you. I do like the purple, and I will not call them 4 and blue.
No, I'm with you on that one. It's purple.
It's purple. I do like the Kings purple jerseys, and I think a white jersey with purple and gold highlights looks incredibly sharp. Like the Lakers Sunday.
Oh
jerseys,
yeah, those are so good.
Those look great. Minnesota Vikings, white jerseys, they look great. So yeah, if that's what it looks like, I'm excited for it. I think it'll look good. But I also hate third jerseys and so whatever.
Really?
Yeah.
That's one thing I love about the NBA. Just all the different matchups you can. I do want consistency with home and away, but give me like whatever alternates you want on special days.
I also want them to go back to white jerseys at home.
I'd be okay with that.
And Zach Dooley actually points out correctly, as it is now, because we wear black at home.
Yes.
Almost every visiting team wears white. It means when you're a fan at the game, pretty much every game looks exactly the same.
Yes.
Maybe the hems of their jerseys are red instead of blue, but it's still black versus white, black versus white, black versus white. Back in the good old days when I was a kid, when Detroit came to town, they were red. When New York came to town, they were blue. Chicago was red. The Jets were blue. You know what I mean? Like North
also Minnesota, as
was green. Like
also as a fan watching an away game, you usually want to be standing out in your team's colors against everybody else's contrast. Yeah. So if you do have white at home, you have that opportunity to be like, look, these are clearly the guys who aren't supposed to be here.
And there were teams that would do the white out at home, right?
Yes.
Now they do the white out at home,
and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And in '98, I think that was the first year the Kings tried to do the blackout, where they encouraged all the fans to wear black in the arena. But you know what happens when everybody wears black in the arena?
It looks empty.
Yeah, it just looks dark. It doesn't, not even remotely the same effect. So I have a general policy in life that if somebody uses the word badass to defend or describe something they like, I am instantly out.
Okay.
And the number one defense I hear when people talk about black color schemes is, oh, it looks so badass. Which is like, I'm not 12. Yeah. And I don't play with G.I. Joe anymore. And I don't need everything that I like. I'm perfectly okay rooting for things that are purple. It's fine. Color is okay.
Oh, I love purple. Yeah, I wish I liked purple. Yeah. That's honestly the one of the things that annoys me. Having our color scheme be black and white and silver is the Ducks wear black and the Sharks wear black. Well, so it means nothing.
That's on them though, because the Kings changed to black in '88, I think.
Yes.
87, 88. The Ducks were eggplant and jade originally, and the Sharks were teal and gray. And then there was some, I don't remember what year it was, where every team in the league was like, well, we're also going to wear black because it's badass.
Yes. Quickly, chrome domes, yay or nay?
Undecided.
It was yay. I love it.
I liked the original thought. Then I was like, kind of out. Then I kept watching them, and then I was like back in, and But I will tell you what I do love is the white gloves.
Oh, it's so good, so clean.
I love white gloves.
It's funny though. White pants, get out of here. Don't want it.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, it's
Not
funny
wrong.
how certain color schemes only work on
Although,
parts.
have you seen the outfit, the uniforms? I'll call it an outfit for the Long Beach shredders.
Yes.
I am prepared to accept white.
Yeah,
shirts.
yeah, but yeah, I guess you just have to work hard and actually making it fit.
Yeah,
That's one of my biggest problems with Colorado currently winning the cup is that their uniforms just looks like it's just an amalgamation of their
yeah. Well,
colors, and that's about it.
it's always really funny to me what subtle changes make a color scheme. Like the Kings 50th anniversary jerseys with the gold borders around the logos. Blech, not a fan. Do not like gold and silver.
Oh, that's one of my favorite jerseys.
Change the gold to white,
Yeah,
and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, I'm on board. That's a look.
yeah.
I get it.
You know why I love those jerseys so much though?
Why?
So I got mine sent to the same one that does the lettering for the Kings, and just the sublimated number. Do you have the little Kings logos inside the numbers? Jeff
wow.
Carter one.
There you go.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's so good. I love it. Also, it's signed by Jeff Carter, so I guess that doesn't that also like
it doesn't hurt. Yeah,
helps it more.
Yeah.
One more question from a listener, Jeff Edmonds.
Mm-hmm.
Starting line of all-time Kings, any era. So three
Just like-
forwards, two defensemen,
Okay,
one
so
goalie.
just not a full roster, but just
No. I feel like it'd be forever.
Okay, well, Jonathan Quick,
Absolutely.
right off the bat.
Mhm.
You know what? I'm gonna give myself a challenge and say non-active Kings,
Okay.
because otherwise it's just like,
Are you throwing in Dustin Brown now then?
no.
Okay.
I'll say nobody that played or anybody that was retired prior to whatever 2015. I'm gonna
Okay.
go Felix Potvin.
Okay. The
So
cat.
I love Potvin. He wasn't here that long, but I'm gonna go Felix Potvin, Matthew Schneider, Lubomir Visnovsky, Luke Robitaille, Natch, Eric Belanger, and Ziggy Palffy. No, Eric Belanger, Robitaille, Belanger, and Leperrier. There you go.
Good. I was worried you were gonna take the easy out with Gretzky.
No.
Love it.
No.
Love it.
One of the funniest things to me anyway, between me and the Royal Half, is that he just always adored Gretzky and I always adored Robitaille. And even though there's no reason you can't adore both of them, I always in my adoration of Luke Robitaille, I chose to also manifest a rivalry against Wayne Gretzky in my own head. So he's great. He's awesome. I have a bunch of Gretzky like stuff, but yeah, no, I'm not.
You know what's funny? Like, again, we talked about like going back and learning about the history. For me, and I have didn't know hockey existed.
Yeah, he was long gone by the time you got
yes. There. Luke Robitaille is a King. Gretzky is the guy who played on the Kings.
No,
that's the way I see it. And I know he took us to the final and whatever. And
you're not wrong. That is
I have a shirt that I found at a vintage store from the 1993 season, and I love it. It's great.
Yeah.
Jesse, thank you so much. This is
a
personal dream come true. Love it. Thank you so much for all you do. Again, when I first moved to the Bay Area, you were one of the voices that was a little constant for me as I readjusted to life at school and work up here. So thank you so much, and I will continue to hate the Sharks as long as I live up here until I don't.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I try and say this as often as I can. I started doing the show because I was a fan who wanted something that didn't exist. So I made it. And so I would say to you, thank you for doing your show, because the more people that talk about the LA Kings, the better. So appreciate the kind words, but thank you. For
Kings all day. We love it. And thank you so much. And to everyone listening, we'll see you next time. Peace.
Go Kings, go.